and she's doing an open water swim, 1 mile to the finish line, a competitive swim. All right, so if she keeps thinking about the finish line, like, she's going to get overwhelmed and be like, how am I going to get there? And it's too much, it's too discouraging, it's too far. Right? But if instead she says, okay, I'm going to spend 2% of my time with my head out of the water looking at where I want to go, and the other 98%, I'm going to do what I trained my whole life to do, which is swim. I'm going to focus on the way I move my arms, my legs, the motion of my body, the rhythm of my body, the rhythm of my breathing, and I'm going to just use the techniques I spent my whole life refining. Well, if she does that, she's going to get there much faster than she even expects. It's the same with running your companies. You know, focus on what you trained your whole life to do, which is to learn what your customers' needs are, to develop your software or your travel agency, or, you know, develop the best travel services possible, or hospital services, whatever your programs, products, services are. Make them the best out there. Make them fit the needs of your customers today. It's not what it was 5 years ago, so don't act like it was 5 years ago. What are their needs now? You know, it's embracing change. All right? Another important, very important principle around, I'm not worried about the slides now. Another important principle for leading in a tough economy is what I call balance realism with optimism. Balance realism with optimism. All right, so let's say you go back from this leadership conference. You go back to meet with your team, and you know, you sort of like to say to them, oh, you know, everything's okay and we're going to be fine and da da da. They don't believe you because they're like, again, you know, you laid people off yesterday. Now what do you mean everything's going to be fine? You know, there's the sense of like you're going to lose their trust. All right, but if you're first realistic with them in a meeting and you say, okay, so let's look at what's happened, you guys. Where are we? Again, the ship, right? Empathy. Let's look at the past up to the present. This is what's happened. Here's what's happened in Romania. Here's what's happening with our customers. This is what's led our company to its present position. Let's be honest about it. I call that drawing the venom out of the snake. Like the venom is in the snake. Everybody feels this anger until you get it on the table. This is where we are. Let's be honest about it. Be realistic. The next step is to be optimistic about the future. Okay, this is where we are, but you know what? This is where we're going to go. And share and develop an action plan with them about this is where we're going. Because people need to believe in something. They need to believe in a better future. And if you can do both together, it can be extremely powerful. Great example. Starbucks, 1996. Very disappointing holiday season. They wrapped their coffee products in pastel wrapping instead of the traditional Christmas colors. Customers didn't like it, didn't buy it. What did Howard Schultz do? He brought his key employees and leadership team members to Seattle, and he, right there in a meeting, said, this is what's happened. We've had a disappointing season. Realistic. Balancing realism with optimism. This is what's happened. This is what went wrong. And what he did, and this is what leaders have to do, is if he had said the choice for pastel wrapping was a bad choice, we shouldn't have done that. Well, what's he done? He's alienated his marketing director who chose the pastel wrapping, who's going to be an enemy for life. So he has to own his role in what happened. You know, I approved the pastel wrapping from marketing, and that was, you know, we all thought it would work, and it was a mistake. So he owns his role in it, and then he talks about, okay, now where are we going? How are we going to do this better next time around? You know, that's what people need. They need to feel that you know what's really going on, and you're also, you know, you're also optimistic about the future, so they can believe in what you're creating together. All right. The last thing I would say, and then we'll go to questions, is like focus is extremely important. You know, so what I see a lot of people do is like, it's a bad economy, or let's do all these other businesses that are not your core, and that's not going to work. Like, you got to focus on what you're best at. Focus on your core, and A good examples of that are, let's take Nokia. Nokia, you guys remember, if we go back to like the early 90s, Nokia, I don't know if you guys know this, but how many of you know that Nokia started in the mid-19th century as a forestry company? Right? Many people think of Nokia as Japanese, but it's the largest company in Finland. And Nokia by the 1950s had like 11 different divisions, from consumer electronics, rubber, all these things. What's that? Toilet paper. So Homi Olia, the CEO, in the early 90s said, okay, we're going to like sell off all these divisions, and we're going to focus on what's most core to what we really can do. And in the early 90s, it's very interesting. 1989, Berlin Wall came down. There was this like sense that like Nokia's in Finland, their largest customer had been the former Soviet Union. That dissipated. So they lost their largest customer overnight. So what do? The Finns were like, okay, early 90s, who was the economic powerhouse? Japan. So they jumped on that bandwagon, said let's like, we're Finns, we're agile, we're entrepreneurial. They became what they called the Nordic Japan. And so the largest company in Finland, Nokia, what did they do? They said, let's focus on putting the internet in everyone's pocket. And everything became focused on essentially internet and mobility. And that's how they started hosting industry forums. They started like having small startups come and buying them to build applications, develop applications, and build up. And that's how they became top in market share in the cell phone industry. So it's like whatever you want to do, like, it's just keeping that focus. Down economy, it's a good time to buy other companies that are in your same industry that now you can get very cheaply because they're going under. You can build up your core that way. In fact, Aero Electronics did that, and a lot of people they were second in market share on like smelting and with their core focus. They were second in market share, and they ended up buying the company that was third in market share. And a lot of critics said it was like two fat men in the deep end of a pool who can't swim holding onto each other. Well, they increased their revenues by 500% and took over the market share position. The market leader position. So again, think about what your core is and how can you build that. All right, so what we're going to do now, we have about 20 minutes for questions. So anything that I haven't addressed that you really is still burning for you, it's time to go ahead and ask us. Madalena, okay, we have till 1, right? I was told till 1.
Thank you. One short question. Can you be your own coach if you want to be a good leader, or you really have to get someone with experience who can help you to develop yourself?
Do you need a coach is the question, or can you do it on your own? Well, I think coaches cost money and they're not cheap. So I would say if you have the resources for it, of course, it's kind of like, do you need a psychologist or can you figure out your life's issues alone? It's better to have a psychologist if you have a good one. Actually, the way I look at leadership development, it's kind of like sex. All right? Get as much as you can as long as it's good. All right? So I hope that answers your question in an indirect way. All right. Yeah, if it's not the right person, if it's a bad coach is not going to help you at all. Yeah. What's that? Does it need to be related with your company? Well, that's an interesting issue around work-life balance. There are people who, their passion, they find a way to express it in a hobby. And they do it on the weekends or in the evenings. Ideally, it is related to your company. Have you ever heard the day you find the job you love is the last day you have to work? It's like do what you love and the money will follow. The opposite isn't true. So it's better if you can be doing that in your company. I mean, also, if you're, sometimes you can look at your company and say, how can I change this company so that it does reflect my passion, and maybe other people feel the same way. So again, it's like we're looking at an ideal world. I mean, look, you guys can probably tell this by now, but I love what I do. I love this, and I would do this if they didn't pay me. I would probably pay to do it. And so it's like this is my passion, and I enjoy it. I can't imagine working for someone doing what I don't like to do. I mean, you think about like, okay, can you guys remember when you were in high school and you had like remember like the worst, most boring class you ever had? Can you remember that? Where you're like watching the clock, waiting for it to go to the bell so you can leave? Okay, so if that class was like an hour long, think about how old you are. Okay, I'm 43, so depending on your age, but let's say hopefully I work another 25 years, maybe 30, 35 years. So if I do, 1,800 hours per year, times, let's say, 30 years, that's another, that's over 50,000 hours. So imagine that class that you were bored in for 1 hour, 50,000 times. But yeah, what's that going to do to your soul? So I can't answer the question for you, but hopefully that's helps you ask the question. Yeah.
You said about empathy. So I would like the percentage, if I can say so, between how much time you spend for listening, communicating, empathy, and doing things.
And doing things.
Yes, listening 80%, let's say, and doing 20, or you can't spend your energy and time between for empathy and listening and communicating. At least, at last, you must do things.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, but the thing is, if we do without listening first, we often do the wrong things. So you have to find a balance. And there are some times where somebody wants you to listen, and they're going to talk for 2 hours about things that aren't that related to your mission. So I think when listening, when I said it's primarily passive and secondarily active, the active part is steering someone toward the issues you need to work out with them. So if I want to talk with you about football for 2 hours and I'm working in your hospital, at some point, instead of just listening for 2 hours, you may want to say, yeah, it sounds like it was a great game on Saturday, Tony. So anyway, so how do you feel about this new hospice project we're developing, and what is your feeling on it? So you have to steer it towards what you need to do, and of course you need action. Leaders have to be oriented by action. At the end of the day, that's what you're judged on. Yeah. Thanks. Okay, Tibi.
I would have a question. My name is Tiberiu Moise. I represent both Banca Transilvania and Clubul Întreprinzătorului Român. And this question relates to the SMEs, and I think a large part of the audience is made by the SMEs today. And at the beginning of the 70s and the 80s, the slogan in the business thinking was "Big is beautiful." And everyone worshipped the large companies, the big companies, the GM, the GEs, the IBMs, these kind of companies. Back later on, beginning with the 90s and then with the year 2000, the slogan became "Small is beautiful," because smaller companies were more flexible, were better adaptable. They could easily adjust to a fast-changing world. Now, during the crisis, there is this myth, and everyone sees on TV and everywhere in the newspapers that the SME sector is the most hit sector by any economic crisis. So the slogan "Small is beautiful" is being challenged. And, well, we believe that there is a lot of truth, apart from that myth. And we still believe that small is beautiful, but I was curious, what is your opinion, and how should SME business leaders feel about being small as a business in terms of facing economic crisis? Is small still beautiful?
Okay, thanks. Well, I think we have examples of companies that are small and large that are very successful, very effective. People really enjoy working there. You can think of like a small architectural firm of 3 people, and they don't need to be 30 people. They're quite happy, and they're doing well. They have lots of different clients that are developing. They're building houses, building office spaces. You have examples of large companies that are also run really well. It's not true that if you're large, it doesn't mean you can't be agile and innovative. In fact, one of the most innovative companies in the world right now is Google. And, how many people know about Google's innovation time off policy? Okay? So you guys know that at Google, if you're an engineer, a Google engineer, 20% of your time is to go develop an innovative project. If you're a technical manager, 10% of your time. Okay? Or if you're a manager. So, in other words, 1 day out of the week, you don't even have to show up at the office. All right, but why does it work? Because it's structured innovation. You're going to be evaluated based on your innovative project. So if you listen to Google engineers, they're like, they're nervous. I'm like, I got to develop something because, I'm going to be evaluated on this. I'm not going to get a promotion unless I come up with a project. Well, Gmail, AdSense, Google Earth, all of those were developed during innovation time off. So this is a new way of thinking about companies, that it's about goals, not rules. It's about, like, each person, also if you want to be innovative, you can't come down hard on people who screw up or who aren't successful, because then they're not going to innovate anymore. That's a big problem I've seen with companies here. It's that, like, it's judging. That's bad. You did a bad job. Then someone's like, okay, and then they're just going to sit there and not say anything for the rest of their life. You have to, like, give. If you want innovation, you have to show people you believe in them, regardless of what they develop. Like, you're going to be sure you're going to look at it critically, but it doesn't mean that you're critical of them. You're going to deliberate with them about what they develop. Small is beautiful, large is beautiful, medium is beautiful. To me, it's like, the size doesn't tell you about the content of the company. The content of the company is about who are the people. At the end of the day, people want to work for a company where they say, no one else is doing this. We have a unique set of core values. We're a maverick group. We're a renegade group, and no one else is doing what we're doing. No one else believes in what we believe. So that's a whole other thing about strategic planning, developing. We do a lot of strategic planning retreats where companies develop their core values, their vision. People need to know what binds us together. The expression from Built to Last, Jim Collins, preserve the core and stimulate progress, is a really good one, I think. I recommend that book too, Built to Last. It's like, what are our core values? What do we really stand for? And then stimulate progress. Once you know what you won't negotiate, you can negotiate and change everything else. So what is it? Think about in your company with your team. What is it you will not change? Even if you lose money, this is what we do, and this is what's most important to us. This is how we are as a team. Like those values. That's what's important, and then you can go and change everything else. But great question, Tibi. Thank you. Because I think we got to wrap up. One quick thing for the future. As I said, I'm going to be coming back to Romania a couple times next year, hopefully speaking a little more Romanian than I do now, which I'm sure no one was very impressed with. But anyway, I'm going to work on that. I speak Spanish, and y está un poco parecido, entonces, so like I'm going to try to pick it up. And y un poco de italiano, and it's some similarities. Okay, so like cu placere, molto placere. Okay, anyway, I'll leave that to others who speak better. But so here's what I want to say. Going forward, leadership is a journey. It is not a destination. So if you think about it, today all of you have left your busy lives. You got off stage and onto the balcony here, where you've been observing yourselves on stage, looking at how do you lead when you go back to the office. Well, what I want to recommend is that that's not something that ends here. This should be a beginning, not an end. Like, always thinking about how can you improve your leadership skills and develop them. So a few resources we have for you. If you go to execleaders.com, execleaders.com, if you're a nonprofit or like a hospital, education institution, don't go to this website. Go to socialleaders.org. Social leaders, plural, socialleaders.org. But if you're in a company, go to execleaders.com. At the top, you can register, and then you're going to get our leadership e-zine, which goes out every few months. Articles from our trainers from Oxford Business School, Harvard Business School, Georgetown Business School. And the other thing, and I recommend this for everybody, is just put all these up there. Okay, whoops. Oh, I went and did it, didn't I? Okay, there we go. All right, so all of you also will find the website at the end of the book of Leadership Total. What I recommend everyone do is at the top right of the website, there's a blog and there's Facebook. You can join both of them. All right, how many of you have Facebook accounts? Okay, so that works. So the Facebook group is called Full Alignment. Leadership Total in English is called Full Alignment. It's actually coming out in the fall of next year with Simon & Schuster. The book you have is coming out with Simon & Schuster, the largest publisher in the U.S., in the fall. And it's called Full Alignment. And if you go to Facebook and just type in Full Alignment, you can join the Facebook group. Right? And you're going to get leadership articles. And also every week I'm now sending out a quote with a quote related to leadership, personal and business